Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Stefan Joens, and he is the president of Elnick Systems and talks about what he calls the glorious unknown, which is how great conversations will lead to great relationships. And this is such a great conversation. You guys are going to love this. Don't forget to connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't already. Check us out on YouTube. We put all our videos on there, and don't forget to check us out on MSL Talk Live, which is typically the first Tuesday of every month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravela, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical.
Stefan, my man, welcome to the podcast. How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for letting me join you and your crew and your amazing audience you got, man.
I love it, guys. You are in for a treat. Stefan is a friend, a colleague, a mentor, an inspiration. He's just an all-around amazing human being that we are blessed to have him on this show. I invited him handpicked personally to talk to us. But before I get into that, Stefan, why don't you do an intro, tell everybody who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Sure. Awesome. Again, thank you for letting me join you today. Just as honored to be here with you, man. It's going to be exciting. Love diving into these topics we're going to be talking about today. So I'm Stefan Joens. I'm out of New Jersey. I run a manufacturing company that builds industrial equipment used for the metal making, or let me step that back, metal part making industry. Sometimes I stumble over my own words. Basically metal that's either molded or 3D printed needs to go through a furnace. I make the furnace. That furnace makes parts hard and dense. We have a service business that does all the process work too, so all the process engineering. We have an outfit in Germany that does service and spare parts. And then I have a little side therapeutic business hobby, which is behind me, the beautiful wooden flags and other wooden projects that I get involved in. So that's business number 4. It's more of a hobby kind of thing, but one day that'll grow into a bigger business too. But for now, I'm a manufacturing guy here in New Jersey. Kind of going through a big operational change right now. We're moving our business from New Jersey down to North Carolina later this summer. And it's family business. Been in and out of this place since I was 14. Learned a lot. Took about 4 or 5 years, spent it in the finance industry for a little bit, and really got to learn more about people and how money works and how insurance policies work and all the things that I've been able to bring back to this business and help this company really transform itself from, a $7, $8, $9 million business to almost $20 million last year.
Guys, you're probably all wondering, like, Tom, why did you invite a guy from the manufacturing industry to come onto a podcast for Medical Science Liaisons? And the answer is this guy is a monster communicator, people person, and personal growth expert. That's why. And you're going to hear in the next 30 minutes or so, by the time we're done, you're going to be like, Tom, thank you for bringing Stefan to this show because he's amazing. So let's jump into it. And we're going to talk about communication, but how to excel in conversations. And the place I'm going to start is, so Stefan, we were having a conversation and you mentioned this term, the glorious unknown. Mm-hmm. I had no idea what you meant then. I still don't know what you mean. So I'm going to start there. What do you mean by the glorious unknown?
Awesome. And that's, just to recap kind of back to what I said before, that's the other thing that I really love doing is I love getting together with people. I love having conversations with people. I love learning from what other people are. And I learned a lot of that when I worked in finance. And I mean, you have to hop into a meeting with somebody who you don't know, you might have had a phone conversation with, and you got to spend a half hour, an hour, 2, 3 hours with them about super technical or super, let's say, important conversations about their money, about what they're trying to do with their lives. So what I got to was I've developed this kind of little skill around being comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? So the uncomfortable, the glorious unknown is what you had asked for. For me, that's that like, it's right before you go into a new meeting with somebody you've never met before. It's right before you go into a networking event you've never met before. It's right before you get up off your chair and you go talk to the girl or the guy across the way at the bar, the restaurant, the party, wherever you are. The unknown is you don't know what the outcome of that is going to be. And that's nerve-wracking. That's challenging. It's uncomfortable, right? But the glorious part of it is some of the most amazing things have come from that little unknown pocket, which is the result of that conversation or what takes place through that. Right. So for me, I love getting involved with conversations and people that I've never met before. And the confidence, which I know we're going to dig into this a little bit later, like how do you do these conversations? I know a lot of what I'm bringing to the table in my conversation, but that glorious unknown, the truth of it is it's a space. You have to switch your mindset to, fear is always going to be there, but you can't let fear be the winner. You have to let the potential of what's going to come out of that conversation be so much greater with so much more joy than what the fear is going to stop you from actually getting involved in it. Right. So Tom, one of the things you got involved in recently was a big private educational group session, right, called Evolve that you got involved in. And I remember you and a bunch of the other people that we're friends with got involved in this. And I was so excited for you guys to go into this 2 or 3 day event without knowing what the outcome of this was going to be, because the conversations and that back and forth with people that you never know what the outcome is. So obviously if you're going in for a business deal, you want to go in for an outcome, but if it's a conversation without a direct business dealing to it, there's so much that can come just from conversing with people. The brightest idea might come out of that conversation. You might, meet your future wife, your future husband, just because you went up and had a conversation where you don't know what the outcome is going to be, other than I just want to say hi to this person. So the unknown is that like the place where things get created. And if you know that creation can happen there, it becomes a glorious place.
Oh, dude, I love that. We're going to expand upon that. But one of the things I want to ask you is, you're one of the most curious, inquisitive people I know. So is that a big part of this?
I'll tell you, it's helpful. Caring about other people and having a curious mind is really, really important. So like being in finance and having to be around people that were 21 to 91, people that were major financial executives working in like mortgage-backed securities, making millions of dollars a year, to someone just coming out of college, having a new job, trying to start a cash reserve, to like an old war veteran, and all these people of all these walks of lives. I started to get very curious about what they do for their lives and what makes them tick and what got them to where they are, because I was curious about learning, hey, how did you do it? What were the things that got you to this place and so forth? So the curiosity of learning about people really drove me. And then there's this other little thing that kind of drives me. I have a lot of care for other humans and other people that are around me. And I have this level of care where like I really, really love, and this is like me filling my cup up by filling somebody else's cup up. I love to make people smile or have that like twinkle in their eye where they're like, oh man, I didn't think of that. Right? Like to give that moment to somebody fills my cup up to the top. And then I can do it again and again and again.
Guys, he is so good at that. Stefan is such a cup filler. But let me get back a second. And I literally had to like ask a quick question because like it was so noisy here. But I want to get back to the glorious unknown piece for a second, because my audience, the MSL community, you guys are constantly faced with this. Because when you become an MSL, you're often either given a list of key opinion leaders to go talk to, or you're sent out to a conference, or you're in a situation where you just don't know the situation. You don't know the people that you're going to be dealing with or what you're walking into. That's the glorious unknown. And just learning from what Stefan is talking about, the reason he uses that word glorious is because there is something really positive that can come out of the other side as long as you take that leap and go into it with the right level of excitement, enthusiasm, curiosity, be inquisitive, ask the right questions, have the right motives. Don't worry so much about the outcome, worry about the execution more than anything else. And you'll come out of it excited and motivated and inspired, and you'll have insights, and you could bring so much back to the table. So here's the question I have for you though, Stefan. You're really good at this. You're comfortable in conversations. What advice do you have for people that just, it doesn't come natural?
Great question. And that, the first thing is reps, right? It's the first time you go to the gym, you feel awkward, pushing weights around, right? Because you're like, I've never done this before. Is my form good? Is it not good? You go a few times, all of a sudden you're really good. And then somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, can you help me with this? Because you formed, let's say, a skill by doing reps in the process. So you got to get out there and do this stuff. Go to events, go to networking events, join groups and so forth that are there for your specific industry. But even like to the point of just going out and having conversations with random people, we both did a program called 75 Hard, which is really good. And there's a caveat to the end of what's called the Live Hard program, where you have to have a 30-second conversation with random people that you meet. That's a great exercise. I used to, I have this friends of mine and like ex-girlfriends of mine in the past that were all kind of annoyed by it, but like, I would just talk to random people. I would go up to people and be like, hey, what's going on? How's your day? Kind of thing. Or like, we're walking through the supermarket. I'm talking to the cash register person and I'm sitting around for an extra 30, 40 seconds, just chatting with them, because it's that repetition of just talking to people that is your reps, right? And so you said something earlier that I think is really, really good. Going into events, going into networking situations and so forth, the idea of going there is only to meet people, right? If you go in there with, oh, I got to have the right question, or, oh, I got to make sure I have this outcome. Yes, have some desires for where you want it to go, but the main objective of meeting new people should be, I just want to make a friend or a business colleague or something. And here's the thing. If you go to these networking events and you have all these big goals of trying to meet these people, get these things accomplished and so forth, if you don't achieve them, you've just made yourself sad and kind of depressed about you didn't achieve your goal. If going into it is, I just want to meet these people so we know each other, the conversation should start out, hey, my name's Stefan. I'm in manufacturing. I build equipment. I serve all these markets. Tom, what do? You give me your explanation. You give me this little rundown of what you do. If the conversation ends right there, mission accomplished. You just made a connection that you might not need that person for 6 months or even a year, but now you have someone in your Rolodex that you can refer to when something comes up down the road. And that's how you build that relationship. But if in that conversation, you now have gotten to the point where the conversation goes further and you start asking questions about each other and you forge a better relationship, that can now become something that's valuable to you. But you had asked something before about reps. The other thing that's really, really critical is this. If you know where you're going, if you know some of the people that are there, if you know the person that you're interviewing with, or even a business meeting of the person you're trying to meet, man, guys, there's social media out there. There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's Google itself. Just Google the person's name. Find out one or two things about that person that either you share an interest in, because now you have an icebreaker. Oh, hey, man, I saw you played lacrosse back in college. That was a favorite sport of mine when I was growing up. What'd you play? Instantaneous, you're making a connection with somebody that has zero to do with what your ultimate outcome is. But to get to the outcome of, I have to have a better business dealing with this person, I would love this person to become a client, what you're doing is you're building a relationship. People work together with people that they like because they have connections.
I love that, man. There's so much to unpack there. So I'm just going to add and not repeat, add and kind of repeat, but like I love the fact that you're touching on all of the critical elements that are going to help people jump out of their comfort zone. So when you say reps, that means, guys, get comfortable with rejection, get comfortable with no. You have to get comfortable with no and be ready for no. If you can't handle no, and if you can't handle rejection, it's going to be a big bottleneck for you in putting yourself out there. So you have to really start to play this maybe little like gamification and start to just see, well, how many no's can I get? Or let me practice and realize that I should expect a certain number of no's. The other thing too is that preparation piece. The preparation piece does so much to help you to find a level of comfort and confidence, because you're not flat-footed. Maybe you practice your elevator pitch. Maybe you do that research and understand who the audience is. That's going to put you in a totally different position that if you don't practice at all, and you can rehearse it. Don't think that you can't rehearse this stuff. So I love all that. And I use the word confidence. That's another piece that people come to me all the time and they're like, hey, Tom, you know what? This all sounds great, but I struggle with confidence. So, and Stefan, you don't. You're the one of the most confident dudes I ever met my entire life. So any other hacks that you might be able to share with people to help them develop confidence.
Yeah. So that I definitely want to talk on that, but I want to say one thing to what you said earlier. The idea of getting comfortable with no, most people fear is the no. So here's my objective when I try to go into these conversations nowadays. Again, it's come through experience and time of having these meetings. But if you're going in fearing the no, your emotions are going to get all over the place. They're going to be jumping around and all that stuff. And I'm not trying to counteract what you're saying, Tom. What I think the important thing to do is go into the conversation of all I want to do is meet this person. Who cares whether it's yes or no? If your objective is I just want to meet this person and I want to know who they are and what they do, whatever happens afterwards, if you make the objective meeting them, you've accomplished your objective. You've gotten a W. You've gotten a win. You've built confidence, which leads me into how do I build confidence? I've had a bunch of friends in my life over the last 5-6 years who've come up to me, and like one friend specifically, he said to me after I saw him, on a trip I went on, he's like, called me shortly after the trip was over. He's like, dude, just got to ask you a question. Why are you happy all the time? And I'm like, bro, I'm not happy all the time. Like nobody's happy all that much. He goes, yeah, but you got this just way about you. Like you're comfortable, you're confident, you've built this happiness around you. And I told him, I was like, there's something that I do that I've learned, not just for hearing from what Andy talks about on the Real AF about the power list, but things I also did in my previous life. But the idea of giving yourself a win is a huge confidence booster, right? For anybody that's listening to this, that's played a sport in your lifetime, you probably won a game and you felt really, really good after winning that game. And when you lost the game, you didn't feel really, really good. And if you did it a couple of times together, a win after a win after a win, and you can stack a win feeling, it's really damn good. It feels amazing. So with this friend of mine, what I did is I helped him and I said, listen, here's the deal. For the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be on this process with you back and forth. I want to know 3 things a day you want to do. And I didn't do Andy's 5 power list items because I just wanted this guy to get this process started. So every single day I held him accountable to some things that he wanted to do. He wanted to get in better shape. I was like, cool, awesome. What do you want to do today? I want to lose 10 pounds. You can't do that in a day unless you're running in a plastic bag, 17 sweatsuits on, and you're just running around all day. You may hit the number, but I was like, what's the specific task? He goes, I want to ride a bike for 20 minutes. Cool. What's the other 2? Gave me his list. I did this with him every single day. I checked with him at the end of the day. And I told him in 2 weeks, you're going to feel way different about yourself. At the end of week 1, he told me that he felt way more comfortable and confident who he was. He got a promotion at work because his attitude started to shift. And it was kind of coming, but the boss was like, I got to give this guy this promotion. He said his relationship with his wife started getting better. And all these little things started snowballing on top of them because he started to believe who he was. And belief in who you are and confidence who you are comes from holding a promise to yourself. We as humans are so easy to break the promises we make ourselves, but we always help other people because we feel good about helping other people. You're a person too. Feel good about helping you. And that's the shift I've made in my own personal life. That's given me a complete rocket ship, propulsion of how I am able to manage myself through conversations with new people or meetings and events that I'm in and just general life.
Dude, that's so awesome. I mean, I see it in you. I live a very habit-driven, consistent life where I hold myself accountable. I have very clear goals that I've set for myself. I'm very intentional. Everybody that listens to this podcast knows that I'm super, super intentional. It comes down to that. You have to find, like Stefan says, to find confidence, you have to understand what is it that you want in your life and start to keep those promises that you make to yourself, but spend time with yourself and understand, set clear goals and say, well, yeah, I want to lose 10 pounds. Okay, well, how am I going to get there? Well, you have to set small daily goals for yourself in order to get to the main goal. You already covered that. I'm not going to talk about that. But by doing that and stacking those wins each day by just doing small things each day, that is what ultimately is going to wind up giving you that daily boost of dopamine, that daily boost of confidence, that daily boost of excitement that's going to say, okay, I want to do this again tomorrow. Right. I want to do this again the next day. So every day when you get up, you have something that you're striving for, and that helps you gain that level of confidence. And it's the same thing when you're going out into a networking meeting or going to visit a key opinion leader. You have to be intentional about what it is that you want to accomplish, how you're going to go about it, and just focus on the execution of that and not focusing on the outcome. Because if you focus on the outcome, you focus on that 10 pounds, that's going to distract you. It's going to intimidate you. It's going to take you off your game. So let's talk. We're going to shift. Oh, yeah.
Let's add one thing to that. So
go for it.
Just to piggyback on what you just said there, thinking about the audience that you have, they're in, mostly medical sales, right? So they're either selling some kind of product or this, that, and the other.
Not sales.
Okay.
So these are medical science liaisons, and their responsibility is to educate, not promote. It's non-promotional, but they need to educate and provide scientific information to healthcare professionals in a non-promotional way. So it's really difficult because their main goal is to provide value and even talk peer to peer.
It's even better. I love this topic. We sell equipment, right? But my furnace does one thing. What I do in a 1 hour furnace discussion is 5 minutes furnace, 55 minutes of how do you understand the process? Do you understand all the little things you need to do across the process to become accomplished, to become successful? And yeah, okay, my furnace it'll help you in the process, but you need to know all this stuff. So the people in your field that you're helping tremendously, the more they can understand what it is they're talking about, do the research at the end of the day. That knowing the topic of what you're talking about gives you a boost of confidence no matter who you go talk to. So understanding your information, understanding your industry, understanding the topic of the discussion is by itself the ability to be that much more comfortable and confident in a conversation. And what you got to reward yourself is this. By doing that research, by having all this information, you got to know going in there, you have the information that the person you're talking to doesn't. So you have something they don't. Use that as a boost of your own confidence to know, hey, I'm walking in, I got something they don't know or don't have. It's my job to make sure they understand it. And then find a way to do it in the most simple terms and tell a story around it so people can grasp it.
Dude, that is so powerful. Guys, obviously, Stefan has no idea what an MSL is or does. He just created such an amazing parallel to how important it is. It doesn't matter if you're an MSL or if you're selling manufacturing equipment. The whole key is when you become an expert in your field, people are going to want to hear from you. They're going to want to talk to you. They're going to want you to help them solve their problems. That's what it's all about. So that is so spot on. Guys, I told you, this freaking guy's a genius. I told you. So Stefan, as being in the recruiting space, I always like to go back to this place of thinking about the job seeker, thinking about people that may be preparing for an interview. And I know that you, as a president of a growing company, are always interviewing people. So what interview advice, what types of things do you look for when you're interviewing candidates, and what can you share with the audience today?
I mean, it goes kind of back to the beginning of the conversation. Is you're going in for an interview. Obviously, the objective is to get a job, right? But don't go into the interview with the objective of getting a job. The objective should be, I want to forge a relationship with this person who's interviewing me. If that's your objective, that you're putting less attention to the specifics of the seat in the office that you're going to sit in, which is important. You need to always kind of have a vision for that. But if you're sitting across the table from the person and you're having a conversation, the way they walk out of that interview is be like, man, this person they kind of understood really what we do. They understand people. They've made connections with me as a human. I've interviewed tons of people. We have a new woman on our team, not new, she's newer, let's say, in terms of the overall scheme. She's been with us for a couple of years. She's our finance and HR woman. She came in for an interview. I interviewed 10 people across the line for this. We spent 3 hours talking, of which maybe 30 minutes was work related. We spent the whole time just talking about life, making a connection with each other, understanding each other. We both kind of did a little research on each other before we came in, so we had some talking points, right? So that's huge. If you know, before you go into the interview, ask who's doing the interview so you can do some research on them. Again, make that little connection, one or two things, right? Google's a phenomenal tool. You can find a lot out about people these days, whether it's good or bad. It's up for objective. But so this woman came in and literally I walked out of that meeting. I'm like, this is going to be our next finance and HR woman. She walked out of the meeting, called her son on the way home. And she goes, I just found my new home. And it wasn't even offered at that point. She's like, but we just made that connection. So in interviews, the thing that's most important is find a way to connect with the person across from the table, tell a story, have that relationship being built between each other, yeah, the work's important. They're going to ask you questions about work. They're going to ask you specific tasks and so forth you've done. Try to find a way to tell a story around how what you've done was helpful for the people that you helped, and how you've built a bridge between, if it's in your specific industry, the people that are needing the information and you having the information. How did you build a bridge to them? Paint the picture of that stuff. That's going to give these people the ability to say, wow, these people are good at communicating. These people are good at educating a customer at the end of the day. And hey, try to find a way to do the same thing for the person on the other side of the interview table, right? And don't be afraid to interview the people too, right? So you're sitting in the seat to be interviewed. You got to interview the company too. That's really important. Ask the company, what are the values you guys hold? What's your mission? What are you guys trying to do and accomplish? Because if those two things don't align, that sucks. I tell people at the end of the day, if any interview that comes through, I tell every guy or gal that's sitting in our seat, I say, this is really important for us to make sure we get to know you. You have to get to know us though. So what questions do you have? But when it leaves, I always say, this is, especially if I know they have a family, I say, listen, this is an important decision. This is going to be a new career for you. Take the time to think about it. Go home, talk to your spouse. If they have questions specifically and they want to call us or come and meet with us too, I honor them to come in, because to me, it's important for people to have connection at home. Now, not everybody wants to have that at home, right? That doesn't work all the time. But there's been some times that people have come back in and their spouse came in to meet us too, because I want to get to know the people that they're going to have at home, and what kind of support and help do they have at home too? And what's that unit look like? That's just me caring more. So that's critical.
That's amazing. And I think that's rare. I do. I think that's something that I wish people did more of, but I don't think, and especially nowadays, I think there's so many people that are virtual, and maybe you can set up Zooms with family members and stuff like that. You could certainly do that. But I have to tell you, I think that's, first of all, tremendous advice. And it's advice that I don't normally really, it's been said in different ways, but the way you put it, which is to focus on the relationship in front of you first,
right?
And don't worry about, am I going to get the job so much? Let me tackle what's in front of me, which is my ability to make this connection, make an impact, and develop this relationship. And then everything else is going to come together. I think is one of the most powerful things anybody's ever said on the show.
Especially if you're applying for a job that might have 30 or 40 interviews that person's seeing.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to remember you, not remember you in relation to the job. They obviously know it's for the job, but remember you.
Right.
How did you make that person feel? People always remember how you make them feel, not what you told them.
Right. Yeah. And this works not just in interviews. Obviously, we're talking about when you're going into your KOL visit and you need to present a data set or whatever it might be. Again, if you take this approach and make that connection and develop a relationship, develop a colleague, develop an ally, it's a whole different ball game. You're still going to you still will accomplish your goal by providing the value, but you're also creating that relationship. So I know that this is easier said than done. This isn't just a magical kind of thing. It takes a lot of work. It does take a lot of effort. It takes a lot of, as Stefan said, preparation, planning, practice, rehearsing. There's a lot that goes into it. So, but I love this concept. I'm so grateful, Stefan, that you came and you're pouring into. I knew that this was going to be good. Let me ask you though, you brought up a good, and I don't want to forget this, but you brought up a very important word, questions. So you made it a point to say, interview the other person. Well, I think that goes into a lot of different walks of life. It's not just you being inquisitive, curious, and asking the right questions when you're on an interview, but I think you have to always be armed to ask others the right question. So how do you handle that? Do you prepare for that in advance? What types of questions do you typically go into conversations with in order to help build that relationship?
That's a great one. So, I mean, from a preparation and like research point of view, you only need 10 minutes. Like you can do it on the train ride into the place you're doing. Grab your phone, Google the name. You'll get to know something about that person, right? But what I would do is don't think about this most amazing question that it's the most earth-shattering question. Try to think about a question that you specifically can talk about, right? So for me, I love adventure. I love hiking. I love snowboarding. I love sports and lacrosse. I love motivational quotes and motivational things. I love leadership discussion. I love talking about leadership. It's one of my favorite topics. So when I ask questions, I try to ask questions that I would be able to answer if it was pushed to me, right? Because, and here's the hack, if you ask somebody a question about something that you specifically are comfortable enough to talk about, now as they lobby back to you and say, hey, what do you think about it? Now you have something you can talk about because it's your thing, right? Why ask this question? It's like, I love scuba diving. I've never personally actually gone scuba diving. What the hell am I going to ask that question for? It's like, hey, do you like scuba diving? Why would I do that? Right. I would talk about something that I can talk about. So, this whole thing about the unknown, this whole thing about relationships, this whole thing about everything is, it's important to make sure that you research somebody. Like if they did something amazing in their life or their career that you're more inquisitive and want to learn about, like they started this massive foundation that made a huge change in people's lives. Cool. You can ask questions about that, even if you don't know what it's about, but you got 4 or 5 questions. How did you start it? What was the driving force behind you wanting to do this? What impact did you want to make on the world? Right. And actually get to know the person, because now you're going to understand the reasons behind that human, what drives them. So now you kind of understand them more. So anytime you have to follow up with that person in any further interaction, you know what drives them a little bit. Right. So that becomes like a little bit of a cheat and a hack that you can keep. And it's kind of just like a list of information you keep about people, either in your head or on your phone or however you do it. But ask questions about stuff that you specifically can talk about, because that's not going to make you feel as uncomfortable.
Dude, that's such a good hack, because 90% of the people would answer that question, well, look at their pictures on the wall and find out what their hobbies are. And that's all good. I don't want to take away from that and say that that's not a good thing to do. You should absolutely learn about the person on the other side of the table and be able to talk about what's important to them. Absolutely. But if you can find something you have in common that you can speak about, let's just say somehow, some way, you find out that person loves Yellowstone or Ted Lasso or whatever other program it's on. And you're like, oh my God, I heard you mention that, you're a big Ted Lasso fan. I'm obsessed. Love Ted Lasso. Who's your favorite character on the show? Right. Yeah. Or, oh my God, doesn't Beth Dutton get you, drive you crazy? Like, be able to have that conversation, create that connection, because people do light up when you talk about things that they have interest in, but they also like novelty too. So when you mention, talking about something that you're an expert in, that novelty is also something that'll give somebody a shot of dopamine. And I hate to keep going back to that, but it is true. You want to have an impact in the conversation.
So here's the other little
last thoughts. What do you got?
Let me add one thing to that last little piece. So here's the other reality, especially if they've never met you, they're probably uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
They might have a little bit of fear going on in their own body. And that's the natural thing most people have. It's like they feel the most fear of the unknown. And they're like, oh, well, this other person, they're an expert. They know everything. They're super, super great at everything they do. They're never going to be uncomfortable. It's like, yeah, they are. Everybody's a little uncomfortable before they go into a place they don't know things about. It's just human nature. So the idea of talking about things and asking questions about what you know, what you're doing, is you're actually teeing up things. You're giving a gift to the other person on the other side of the table to ask questions about you, because you're offering them information about you by talking about things you like to do. And that's that reverse information back and forth. So it's little subtle things. But again, if you're comfortable about talking about wakeboarding, then be like, hey man, you ever get down to a beach, or find out if they have a beach house, and then you can work your way into wakeboarding. Don't be like, hey, you like to wakeboard?
Yeah, just throw something random out there. Yeah, novelty's not good when it's totally random. It has to have, like, there has to be something behind it. But dude, this was awesome, man. You're the best. Any final thoughts, final words, advice?
Man, I mean,
yeah, that's a loaded question for you.
This has been truly fun, man. I really appreciate it. There's one I'd like to tell everybody about a book that I read recently. I'm actually still in the process of finishing, but I've reinforced a lot of what I've shared here by reading that book. The book is called Captivate, and it's written by a woman by the name of Vanessa Van Edwards. And her whole business model is the science of people. And there is a incredible level of value in that book. How to work a room. Where do you position yourself in a room when you're doing a networking event? All kinds of icebreaker questions and things like that. It's a phenomenal, phenomenal book if you're trying to learn about people and how to be good at the conversation side of it, whether it's in an interview, in a networking event, in a group event. I highly recommend everybody goes and grabs that book. I'm not making any money on it. I just really believe in.
Dude, I can't even believe it. I seriously can't believe you just said that. Literally one of my favorite books that I've read in the last 5 years.
Oh, you did?
I literally listened to it twice.
Awesome.
Took notes. I have actually trained MSL teams on the concepts in that book. You'll hear me talk about it. Anyone that knows me. So that's so crazy how we're on the same page. But guys, as far as an MSL book that has to do with building relationships and developing the muscle of influence and how to really get people to like you, Vanessa Van Edwards is absolutely masterful. It's one of the best, honestly, one of the best books I ever read.
Yeah.
Although I listened to it. Really, really good stuff. And it's research-based stuff. So all you MSLs will love that. So Stefan, you are the man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you being here. Love you. Likewise, and we got to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode in the future. And feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.